In the cold winter of the 15th century, in the rugged lands of what is now Romania, a young boy stood silently in the courtyard of a burning fortress. His name was Vlad. He was not yet a monster, only a prince forced to grow up too quickly. That night, he watched as his father was dragged away by enemies and his family betrayed by those who had once sworn loyalty. The screams echoed through the stone walls, mixing with the crackling of fire. Soldiers' shadows danced along the ground like dark spirits. Vlad did not cry. He did not move. He only watched. Something changed inside him. In the years that followed, Vlad lived among enemies, learning their language, their war tactics, and their cruelty. He learned that power belonged to those who inspired fear. Mercy, he decided, was a weakness that led to death. When he finally returned to reclaim his throne, he was no longer the frightened boy from the burning castle. His face had grown sharp, his eyes cold and unreadable. Those who betrayed him were punished in ways so brutal that the land itself seemed cursed. Word spread quickly. The prince did not forgive. Villagers began whispering that darkness followed him, that even the wind grew still when he passed. Some swore his gaze felt inhuman, as if he had left part of his soul in the flames of that terrible night. And deep within his heart, a single belief had taken root. Fear is stronger than love, and Vlad would rule by fear. When Vlad finally secured his throne, the land expected celebration. Instead, it witnessed terror. Messengers rode through villages announcing a grand feast for nobles, warriors, and those who had once claimed loyalty to the crown. The great hall was filled with laughter, music, and the clinking of goblets. Vlad sat at the head of the table, silent, observing every smile, every nervous glance. He knew who had betrayed his father. He had not forgotten. When the doors suddenly slammed shut, the music stopped. Soldiers surrounded the hall. Panic spread like fire. One by one, the guests were dragged outside. By morning, the fields beyond the castle had transformed into a nightmare. Tall wooden stakes rose from the earth, and upon them, Vlad's enemies. But it did not end there. He ordered entire groups of thieves, traitors, and invaders to face the same fate. Thousands of bodies lined the roads leading into his kingdom. Travelers approaching the capital were forced to pass through what became known as the Forest of the Impaled. The dying sometimes lingered for days. Their cries carried across the valleys, fading slowly into silence. Crows gathered in black clouds above the field. The air smelled of blood and decay. Vlad would ride through the forest without flinching. Some claimed he even dined nearby, unmoved by the suffering around him. Whether truth or rumor, the stories grew darker with each telling. Fear spread beyond his borders. Enemies hesitated. Even powerful armies whispered his name cautiously. The boy who once watched a burning fortress had become something far more terrifying. And now, the land itself seemed afraid of its ruler. The Ottoman Empire was advancing. Under the command of Sultan Mehmed II, a massive army crossed the Danube, determined to crush Vlad and claim his lands. Their numbers were overwhelming. Tens of thousands of soldiers, war drums shaking the earth, banners darkening the horizon. Against such power, most rulers would have surrendered. But Vlad was not most rulers. Instead of meeting them in open battle, he chose something far more terrifying. On a moonless night in 1462, as the Ottoman camp slept, Vlad and a small force of soldiers moved silently through the forest. They dressed in enemy uniforms, their armor darkened with mud and ash. No torches, no battle cries, only whispers and steel. Just before midnight, they slipped into the camp. Then the slaughter began. Tents were cut open. Guards were stabbed before they could shout. Horses screamed. Confusion spread as soldiers woke to shadows attacking from every direction. In the darkness, friend struck friend, unable to tell ally from enemy. Vlad moved at the center of the chaos, cutting through the camp in search of the Sultan himself. Survivors later claimed they saw a tall figure with cold, merciless eyes, striking faster than seemed human. Some swore his face was splattered with blood, yet he showed no emotion, only focus. By dawn, the Ottomans were in panic. Thousands lay dead. Though Vlad failed to kill Mehmed II, the message was clear. Nowhere was safe. When the Sultan later advanced deeper into Vlad's territory, he was met with another horror. Thousands of impaled bodies lining the road, a warning carved in flesh. Even a conqueror who had taken Constantinople, hesitated. And from that night on, men whispered that Vlad did not fight like a man, but like something born of darkness itself. Wounded and hunted, Vlad fled into the dark spine of the Carpathian Mountains. Snow fell in silent sheets, covering the blood on his armor as if the earth itself wished to hide his sins. For days he rode without rest, until at last he reached a remote monastery clinging to the edge of a cliff. The monks opened the gates reluctantly. They had heard the stories, the forests of impaled bodies, the rivers that ran red. Still, they offered him shelter, for even a feared ruler was a man in need. Inside the stone walls, candles flickered against ancient icons. The air smelled of incense and cold stone. Vlad lay on a wooden bed while an old monk tended to his wounds. The monk's hands trembled, not from age alone, but from fear. "Do you repent?" the monk asked softly. Vlad's eyes remained hard. "I did what was necessary." That night, a storm rolled across the mountains. Thunder cracked like cannon fire. As lightning illuminated the chapel, the old monk approached Vlad one final time. His face was pale, his breath shallow. "You have bathed this land in blood," the monk whispered, "and blood shall follow you beyond death." A violent gust of wind burst open the chapel doors, extinguishing the candles. Darkness swallowed the room. When the monks returned at dawn, Vlad was gone. Only the old monk remained, lifeless upon the stone floor, his expression frozen in terror. From that day forward, the monastery was said to be cursed. The bells would ring at midnight without human touch. Shadows moved along the walls though no one stood there. And in the mountains, villagers claimed they sometimes saw a lone rider beneath the storm clouds, watching. The news of Vlad's death spread like wildfire across the land. Some celebrated, others whispered prayers of relief. They said he had fallen in battle, surrounded by enemies, his body recovered and buried in holy ground. At last, the Prince of Blood was gone. He was laid to rest in a monastery far from the battlefield. Thick stone walls surrounded the grave, and monks prayed day and night, hoping to calm whatever darkness had followed him in life. The coffin was sealed. The tomb was closed. Heavy earth covered the stone. But strange things began to happen. Only weeks after the burial, villagers living near the monastery reported seeing a shadow moving across the hills at dusk. Dogs howled without reason. Horses refused to enter their stables after sunset. A cold mist lingered unnaturally around the monastery grounds. Then came the deaths. Animals were found lying in the fields, not torn apart by wolves, not poisoned, but pale and stiff, as if every drop of blood had been taken. 2 small wounds marked their necks. Fear returned stronger than before. The monks tried to ignore the rumors, blaming superstition. But one night, the monastery bells rang violently at midnight, though no hand pulled the ropes. Terrified, the monks decided to open Vlad's tomb. With shaking hands, they pushed aside the heavy stone slab. Torches flickered wildly, as if disturbed by unseen breath. Prayers filled the dark chamber. When the coffin lid was lifted, a horrible silence followed. The grave was empty. No body, no bones, only torn burial cloth and dark stains along the wood. Outside, thunder roared across a clear sky, and in the distance, on the hill above the monastery, a tall figure stood watching. High above the valley, hidden among jagged cliffs and swirling fog, stood Vlad's old fortress. Years had passed since his supposed death, yet the castle did not crumble like other abandoned places. It remained waiting. Villagers avoided looking at it after sunset. A thick mist rolled down from the mountains each night, wrapping around the towers like pale fingers. Some claimed they saw faint lights flickering in the highest window, though no one lived there. Others swore a tall, dark figure could be seen standing along the battlements, cloak moving though there was no wind. Then the disappearances began. A shepherd never returned from the hills. A young woman vanished after claiming she heard someone whisper her name outside her window. Children woke in the night, saying a pale man had been standing at the foot of their beds, smiling without warmth. Doors were found open in the mornings, candles extinguished, rooms cold as winter ice. One brave hunter decided to prove the stories false. Armed with a crossbow and courage he did not truly feel, he climbed toward the castle at dusk. The fog thickened as he approached. The great wooden doors stood slightly open, creaking softly. Inside, the halls were silent. No dust covered the floor. It was as if someone walked there often. The hunter reached the grand chamber. A voice echoed behind him. You should not have come. He turned slowly. At the top of the staircase stood a tall figure, unnaturally pale, eyes dark and endless. The air grew heavy. The hunter's breath turned to frost. The next morning, villagers found his crossbow at the edge of the forest. But the hunter was never seen again. And from that night forward, no one doubted. The castle was no longer empty. Centuries passed, and the world changed. Kingdoms fell. Empires rose. New wars painted the earth red. Vlad's name slowly faded into legend, told in frightened whispers by candlelight. Parents warned their children not to wander at night. Priests spoke of demons that were the faces of men. But some stories refused to die. In times of great bloodshed, when battlefields grew heavy with the scent of iron, soldiers reported seeing a dark figure walking among the fallen. Not attacking, not speaking, just watching. During long winters, travelers claimed a stranger sometimes appeared at lonely inns, pale, well-dressed, with eyes that seemed older than history itself. He never ate. He never drank wine. And before dawn, he was gone. In remote villages, the pattern remained the same. Animals drained of blood, windows opening without sound. A cold presence in the room before sleep turned to nightmare. Those who survived encounters described the same thing. A tall figure with piercing eyes and a voice calm as still water. I have lived many lifetimes, he would whisper. It was said that the curse spoken in the monastery had never lifted. Death had not claimed Vlad. It had transformed him. He no longer ruled a kingdom of land and stone. He ruled fear itself, hidden in shadows, moving through centuries, feeding when war and chaos made his hunger strongest. The more humanity destroyed itself, the stronger he became. And somewhere, high in forgotten mountains, an ancient castle still stands when the fog rolls in. If you ever feel a cold breath in the dark, if you hear your name softly called at midnight, remember, some rulers never truly die. They only wait.